There's a wonderful story of a miracle found in the book of Mark, chapter 6, where 5,000 men are fed using 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish that a little boy brought up to Jesus. Now we know that the number was much larger than 5,000. There was probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20,000 people once you think of the women and children who came to hear the words of Jesus. And for all of them to have gotten excited about the fact that this man had reproduced all of this food, you can imagine what they were thinking. This must be the Messiah. This must be the person who's going to be the King of Israel. And Ellen White tells us in the book Desire of Ages that all of these men and women came together to try and make Jesus become king against his wishes. He was humble. He didn't want to become king. And he realized what their thoughts were about. It was against his mission. And immediately the Bible tells us that he took his disciples and put them on a boat and sent them out into the water. Now, he turned around to the 20,000 people there and in a divine inspired voice told them to disperse and go home. And it is at that time that the people of Israel started to change their opinion about Jesus. They started to believe that he was no longer the Messiah. He wasn't going to fulfill their dreams and their plans because they were not interested in his mission. And his disciples were having the same conversation out on the boat. And their thoughts were turning negative and spiraling down into an environment where only negativity was going to exist. And immediately, when that happened, God sent a storm onto the lake of Galilee. And the storm was sent to distract them from their negative conversation, from their downward spiral, from their doubt that Jesus was the Messiah, because now they had to put their hands to the oars to fight against the terrible storm. It was a distraction on purpose. And it was in that time of distraction that Jesus actually shows up and walks on water and gave them the lesson that as long as they were looking at his eyes, focusing on who he was, they could also walk on water. But the moment that they let go of his eyes, they sank. And we see that in the story of Peter. This is a good reminder for us. Because sometimes when bad things come into our lives, storms, we're not terribly sure that God is actually involved. But have you ever thought that maybe God allows that storm to come into your life to distract you from the negative downturn that you're going in? So that you have to fight with all of your power and be reminded that the only way to overcome the storm is by looking at Jesus, trusting that he truly is the Messiah. Trusting that he truly is coming home to take us to the home that he has prepared for us. When the disciples saw Jesus, their doubts were cast aside. Their desire for riches, for wealth, for status, for Jesus to become the King of Israel were cast aside. And it was at that time, in direct contrast to the 20,000 people who left in a negative mood, that the 12 disciples started to realize that the mission that God had given Jesus was going to turn the world upside down because of his view of what the kingdom of heaven really is. So next time you think about the storm in your life, rest, reflect, take the time to hear the voice of Jesus. He may have sent it to remind you to focus on him and not on the things around you.